The following program is sponsored by Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County.
Welcome to our 47th season of Mosaic. I'm your host, Susan Shulman Pertnoy. Mosaic is Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County's weekly news magazine, exploring the most critical issues facing Jews here and around the world. Novelist, essayist, and professor of literature, Dara Horn is our guest today on Mosaic. We'll talk about her amazing career and a special effort she's making for all Palm Beach County school children. That's ahead on Mosaic. We're so proud to celebrate our community visionaries, donors who contribute $1 million or more, serving as an inspiration for all of Jewish Palm Beach.
If you want to make a difference in the lives of people, there's no better place to be engaged, involved, and give than the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County.
And being a part of our collective efforts, we are able to strengthen Jewish life, care for those people in need, care for the people of Israel, and confront anti-Semitism and acts of hatred against the Jewish community.
This is just the beginning. We can build this community even bigger and better.
Together, we can look to a very, very bright future.
Now is the time. Come and try something that you've never tried before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us, because the mission of the Federation has never been more critical than it is today.
Welcome back to Mosaic. In Palm Beach County, a groundbreaking partnership is taking place. We're reimagining how anti-Semitism and Jewish studies is being taught to the next generation. Joining us today are two women who are at the forefront of this mission. We have Dara Horn, who is an award-winning author and founder of a nonprofit called The Tell, and Kim Coombs, who is the program planner for Holocaust Studies and Jewish History for the Palm Beach County School District. Welcome back to Mosaic, and welcome to you for your first time.
Thank you.
It's really a pleasure to have you here. Kim, let's start with you. Why did you feel the need to add this type of unit to your Holocaust curriculum?
Well, we have always been a leader in Holocaust education in Palm Beach County schools for the past 30 years. And we have been teaching really well 1933 to 1945, the Holocaust. And we can't stay static, right? Everything is always evolving. The world is always evolving, and so we need to be evolving as well. So I think we started to recognize that just teaching the Holocaust isn't giving students a full picture of who the Jewish people are. And so at one point, we had been able to connect with Dara, and we realized that we both felt that this was something that's more important to, well, actually I read her article in The Atlantic, but we realized that we needed to widen the lens. We need to learn more about the Jewish people from the beginning of time to today, not just focused on this small moment of time where Jews are murdered, Jews are victims, and we can't always be teaching about the Jewish people as victims. We need to learn more about resiliency and who they are as a people.
So how is this enhancing what the students are learning?
I think it's really, I mean, we're just getting started, so it's very new. We've started small in our Holocaust elective courses, where the teachers have a semester or a year to teach about the Holocaust. So we have time to really try to give them the opportunity to branch out and kind of test this out and see how students respond to it. But students are really responding well. I mean, it's important for them to understand who the Jewish people were and what they lost before we learn about, you know, what happened. One of the really interesting things, I was planning a PD, and I think we're going to talk about this later.
What does PD mean?
Professional development.
Okay.
I was planning a professional development for a group of principals that would be participating in a trip called the March of the Educators that is sponsored by the Jewish Federation and the Palm Beach Center for Combating Anti-Semitism and Hatred. And we were putting together 5 educational sessions for this group of 20 principals. And I was talking to Dara about it, and she said, oh, great, well, what are those sessions going to be? I said, well, I think we're going to start with the history of anti-Semitism. She said, oh, that's a good idea, but don't you think we should know who the Jewish people are before we teach why they hate us? And I was like, wow.
Which is what I want to talk to Dara about. How did you realize that this is a missing piece in education today?
Yes, well, so first I want to say I'm really grateful to be in partnership with Kim on this project, and really excited to be here in Palm Beach because this is really our first pilot site for this new program from the TAL. And I also want to say express gratitude for the Federation and the Palm Beach Center for Combating Anti-Semitism and Hatred that really made this partnership possible. I started thinking about this after a few years ago. I published a book called People Love Dead Jews. I still can't believe my publisher let me keep that title. Yes, and it's about export. It's sort of about exploitations of Jewish history, and it came out of my experience as a writer and journalist, where I noticed that the only thing that my editors at non-Jewish publications wanted me to write about was essentially dead Jews. Right? It was stories about anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, and I'm like, there's something missing here. After that came out, and especially in the past 2 years, when you've had sort of this explosion of anti-Semitism in a lot of different sectors, I was pulled into this ill-fated committee at Harvard advising the now former president of Harvard on this topic. And yeah, she didn't take a lot of our advice. Apparently. So I'm like, wow, college, too late. And I also, as Kim mentioned, I had written a piece for The Atlantic actually a couple of years ago about Holocaust education in America. And it was just really striking to me, traveling around the country, speaking with educators, meeting with schools, people who write curricula, people who are, work at museums. It was really striking to me how, as Kim said, it was very, what you described prior to this new project, it was very typical, that we really teach really well, 1933 to 1945, to such an extent that I remember this anecdote I always share about this that I think really illustrates it is I was at the Dallas Holocaust Museum at a PD, professional development workshop for teachers, and I remember talking to one of the docents at the museum, and I said, what do the students typically ask when they come through the museum? And he said, you know what they always ask? They say, are there still Jews alive today?
Wow.
Because if you went to this museum, you wouldn't know, right? I mean, and obviously if you have connections with Jewish people in your own community, that you might not have that question. But it was like, it sort of just hit me like, wow, it's like Jews have been erased from the school curriculum, right? The only place that Jews appear in the curriculum is when they're being murdered in Europe between 1933 and 1945. And what that means is that we've outsourced teaching who Jews are to TikTok.
Right.
And we're now living with the results. And so that's when I started thinking about, well, how can we change this approach? And this was the beginning of this project called the TEL Institute.
How difficult was it for you, because you write mostly for adults, to transfer all of this knowledge and technical history detail for children?
So for this, I can't take credit, because I am very fortunate to have a team that's working with me. Because you're right. I mean, not used to writing for, although I do have one children's book, but it's not, as you say, that's not my world, and certainly not, specifically high school. There's, and all of the different levels. I mean, even moving from 5th grade to 8th grade is a completely different world. There's a lot of things that professionals like Kim understand that I don't understand. I was able to, with the TEL, we have a team of educators these are experienced full-time classroom teachers at different levels. Some of them are district supervisors, some of them are professional curriculum writers, people who are working in education for a long time. And I was working with them and sort of deciding being very intentional about what are the things that we want to present, how do we want to present them, but also how to make it interesting and engaging and participatory for students.
So tell us about this pilot program. Kim, you want to start?
Yes. So we are working in approximately 6 schools. We have 6 really highly committed teachers, and then we have some others that are doing a little bit on the outside, dabbling. But what's been really great with this pilot is the teachers have now become a part of it, and they've taken ownership of it. So they're really understanding that the work we're doing could impact the rest of the country, and that hopefully at some point these lessons will expand nationwide. So they're taking it very seriously. We've invited seasoned Holocaust teachers that have a good working knowledge of Holocaust history, that have been well trained. Some of them are Alfred Lerner scholars from the Jewish Foundation for the Righteous, and they are going through each lesson, and they're not holding back. They want to make sure and help to make sure the lessons are age appropriate, are emotionally responsible, are engaging, and that they can fit into a class period. All of those things. So they're able to provide feedback, and the TEL has been amazing receiving that feedback.
Yes. And it's helpful to us, because we want to make this as good as it can be.
Right, and so far the results have been really positive. Students have been really surprised. One of the things that was so interesting was when a student said, I had no idea Jews were a minority. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel that way. You hear that.
Yeah, I mean, especially because you live in your community.
Yes.
And so, it was just an interesting point by a student. But so the teachers are really owning it. They're making it their own. Some of them are changing the slide decks to be more representative of their own personality, but yet still keeping with the content. The other thing that's been really exciting about it is it's giving the teachers a safe and accurate way to teach something new. Right, so they're comfortable in what they've been doing, but anytime you step outside the box, it creates that level of fear. And so this opportunity has given them a comfort level to be able to teach in a new way that's engaging to students.
Dara, can you tell us what the core principles of this program are?
Sure. So this is basically a crash course in the groundbreaking ideas of Jewish civilization. So yes,
That's huge.
Which and
2,500 years.
Yes,
basically,
exactly.
honestly, yes. Honestly,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, and we have it down to there's a million ways we could have done it and still being whittled down, but ultimately we are focusing on these groundbreaking ideas that Jewish civilization introduces to world history, and that become very important far beyond the Jewish community because of their influence on Christianity, on Islam, on the ideals of the American founders. And we are looking at this as something that introduces these foundational ideas, but also persists as this counterculture through history. And ultimately what that opens up is this space where you don't have sort of a positive story about Jewish civilization and then a negative story about anti-Semitism that are totally unrelated. No, because we're teaching about how, I'm going to give one example. One of these groundbreaking ideas is monotheism. Belief in one God, resistance to idolatry, resistance to other gods. Today we hear that and we think it's like a religious idea. In the ancient world, that's a political idea.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, think about it, because other ancient societies have lots of gods. Often one of the gods is the dictator, right? We know this about ancient Egypt. The pharaoh is considered a manifestation of the gods. So when the Jews in ancient times said they're not bowing to other gods, what they're actually saying is that they're not bowing to tyrants. This is essentially becomes an anti-tyrannical movement. When you have an anti-tyrannical movement, it pisses off tyrants.
Right.
So you see, and it's also, this is a countercultural movement, right, that keeps getting conquered by other empires. And the Jews in ancient Israel and ancient Judea, they are constantly being overrun by these other empires. Generally, those empires want everyone to assimilate into this dominant society. So, and the Jews don't assimilate into these dominant societies. And that is something, when you have a dominant society that needs everybody to conform, it pisses off people who want to be validated by everyone agreeing with them. So ultimately, you have this intersection between these ideas from Jewish civilization, which are a challenge to a broader society, and the response to it. And which brings me to sort of this, we have a really, I think, a groundbreaking way of teaching about anti-Semitism.
And we want to hear more of it,
Okay.
but we have to take our first commercial break.
Gotcha.
We'll be right back after this brief message. Coming up, more with novelist Dara Horn and her efforts here in our community. Stay with us.
The Activate Jewish Life movement is a first of its kind, intends to connect with families with children, to connect with teens, to connect with young adults. However people want to engage with Jewish life, we want to make sure that we are providing them with an opportunity to engage in ways that have relevance and meaning for them. What an opportunity we have to change the face of Jewish life.
We're back talking with Dara Horn and Kimberly Coombs about the innovative program in Palm Beach County School System teaching Jewish history. Dara, you were talking about the tyranny of civilizations that kept putting Jews down and yet they kept surviving. You want to continue with that thought?
Sure. So what this leads us to is sort of this understanding of a framework of how anti-Semitism works, which I think is quite different from the way it's usually taught, especially when it's taught in isolation about Holocaust education. That's often extracted from Jewish history as taught as a sort of case study. We're sort of reversing that. And instead, what we teach is, we don't teach anti-Semitism as a prejudice or a bias. We teach it as a lie that's used by people who want to gain or maintain power. And the lie stays the same throughout history. The lie is essentially Jews are the obstacle to whatever you value the most. And the thing that changes in each instance is what you value the most.
This is just such a challenge, and how do you transfer this to your high school students? How is this going?
It's going really well. I mean, there's one lesson, and I'm not going to explain it well because I haven't looked at it in a while, but there's one lesson that uses movies as a way to do that. And they look at, who holds the power in this film, and they look at films that students may know.
Right, something like The Lion King.
Right,
Or,
so who
like
holds the
classics,
power here, and then what is the lie? And so it helps them to transfer that knowledge into things that they know.
Why is Palm Beach County the testing ground for this innovative program?
Well, part of it is because of amazing people like Kim, who have the vision to really understand, what's missing and what possibilities there are for the future. Because I think that there are a lot of people, especially in Holocaust education in the past few years, who are looking at this rise in anti-Semitism around the country and thinking maybe what we've been doing is not meeting the moment. But I think it takes a lot of vision to be able to think about, as you said, teachers often like to do what they've always been doing and to try to think beyond that. So I also have the fortune of having the Palm Beach Center to Combat Anti-Semitism and Hatred that also shares that kind of vision of let's think outside the box of what we can be doing. I also think that Palm Beach County is really a perfect place as a testing ground for this, because this is one of the largest school districts in America. As I've learned, it's a very diverse district in every sense of that word, racially, ethnically, economically, politically. So you have sort of, it's probably saying too much to say it's a cross-section of America, but you have an opportunity to sort of see the way that this resonates with different students from different backgrounds, different teachers, different kinds of environments.
Why talk about why this is so important to teach this to the broader community and not just the Jewish world?
Well, there's two reasons, I think. The first is that Jewish civilization is in so many ways foundational to the world we live in, right? I mean, the words on the Liberty Bell, proclaim liberty throughout the land, are from the Torah, right? I mean, there's so many ideas that are sort of just part of our lives as Americans that come from Jewish civilization. So much of, I mean, Christianity and Islam come, out of Judaism as a development from Jewish ideas. So in a sense, like, this isn't just sort of, this is not like a fun add-on to what students are learning. This is foundational to understanding the world that we live in. So that's one piece of it. But also the other piece of it is, I think that being able to understand how anti-Semitism works through this idea of the lie is also, it's also a skill that students need in terms of living in a pluralistic society and also living in a new media environment. Because another piece of what we're teaching is, and this has been part of Holocaust education for a long time, but I think expanding it beyond that is important, the role of the media in pushing lies.
TikTok is a prime
Of course,
example.
right. I mean, how any Holocaust educator can tell you about the role of new media at that time. Things like newsreels and propaganda films were so important, and that was a new technology at the time. Radio's role. What we look at, and we look at case studies of, for anti-Semitism, we study case studies that range from the year 40 CE to the year 2001. And in each of those cases, we see how new media contributed to spreading this lie. And today we think of new media as being, TikTok, AI, but new media in the 1400s was the printing press. And you look and you see the same dynamic spreading with the printing press. This is a foundational thing for all students. It's really a skill that we're teaching, not only a content.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think we're always trying to find ways to teach critical thinking skills.
Yes.
We want students to recognize hate, but we also want them to question propaganda. They live in a world where they see propaganda all day long.
And recognize it. It's important to recognize it.
And they don't. They take it at face value. They take it for what they're seeing is true. And these lessons really do help them open their eyes to say, I need to question. I need to question things before I share it, before I speak on it, before I protest about it. I need to question it and I need to understand it.
Kim, at the beginning of the program, you were talking about educating the educators. It's an incredible program that you're doing. Please explain what they go through in order to teach.
Yes, well, we have lots of different opportunities for educating our educators. Our educators, by educating the educators, we create this ripple effect where one educator can impact thousands of students throughout their career. One principal can impact thousands of students that year.
Talk about the principals.
Okay, so we have been blessed to partner with the Palm Beach Center for Combating Anti-Semitism and Hatred to participate in a program that we've called the March of the Educators. It starts, we went to principals first because we know that the impact on principals, if you can get buy-in of the school leader, we can bring more and more programs into our schools, like the pilot. The principals that went on the March of the Educators were very eager to participate in this pilot program with the TEL. So they first participated in a trip sponsored by Insight Through Education to Washington, D.C., where they visited the African American Museum, the Holocaust Memorial Museum, and the Jewish Capitol Museum. From there, some of them were selected to go on to participate in this 5-session learning program where they had educators like Dara Horn come and give them this history before we visited Poland and we're going to Israel this summer. We also have opportunities, because of our great community partnerships, we have opportunities for teachers. In November, Dara Horn came back and she taught Who Are the Jewish People to 40 educators. That education, it's a lot of it is, yes, we want you to take these lessons into your class, but it's also adult learning.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
We need our educators to be confident in what they're teaching. If they're confident in teaching this history, they're more likely to teach it.
So it creates a ripple effect down to the students.
All the way
Yes.
down to the students, correct.
Yeah, it's really quite something. Have you ever seen this before?
I mean, it's been very exciting to participate in this and see the excitement that educators bring to this. I mean, to participate, when I've done these workshops, it's, the these are adults who are coming and saying, I did not know anything about this before. Like, this is really interesting. Like, I want to learn more. And I think to me, the key here is opening up that space for curiosity.
Right.
Dara, why is it so important to teach Jewish history as being something so much more than persecution?
Well, because I think that, unfortunately, stories of persecution and oppression and all of these, horrible experiences, unfortunately, are not special in human history. Like, this is a very sad thing about humans. We do horrible things to each other. I don't think there's any kind of group on earth that doesn't have something like this in their history. What is unusual, not unique, but unusual about Jewish history is not this litany of horror. What's unusual about it is the resilience, and how there's all these situations where the Jewish people decided to continue this tradition despite everything being against it. And everyone who is alive today in the Jewish community is a descendant, whether through their family or through what they've chosen to take on in their life, is a descendant of people who have made this countercultural choice. And I think, to me, that's very inspiring for all of us just as human beings to see the power of this kind of resilience.
One last question for both of you. This pilot programs, I hope it goes national and it'll change the way generations will really view anti-Semitism. But what is your hope for this program?
I do hope that this will become a model for the way that people teach and learn about Jewish life, and not just anti-Semitism, but Jewish life and civilization in the broader American public. Our goal at the Tell Institute is to make it normal and expected for any educated American to know the basic facts of Jewish civilization, in the same way that, thanks to the work of dedicated educators over the last 2 generations, we now expect it's now normal and expected for us to assume that educated Americans know the basic facts of the Holocaust. So that is my vision for this. So, and it's people who are interested in learning more about it can go to our website, which is thetellinstitute.org, TELL, because we're telling a new story.
That's great. Kim?
I just think it's really important for students and humans in general to understand that there's so much more to the Jewish people than just anti-Semitism, and there's so much more to the Jewish people. We're always trying to teach about contributions of other cultures and ethnicities in our school, and we designate these months: Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, Holocaust Education Week.
Negative.
What's different, right?
Yes.
So we really need to try to find ways to focus on who are the Jewish people, what contributions have the Jewish people made to society from the beginning of time throughout history.
Well, you two have done a remarkable job, and I'm so proud that you were on our show and had a chance to explain what you're doing. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having
us. Thank you, Susan.
This program is sponsored by Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County.